Hello and good evening, and welcome to the Shed, hashtag Irish Bills Mafia, with me, Trevor. And I'm delighted and honoured to be joined tonight by former former Buffalo Bills number 60, Jerry Ostroski. You're very welcome, Jerry, to the show. I'm delighted to have you on. It's an absolute privilege, sir.
No, it's awesome, man. This is great. Get a chance to speak to somebody across the pond, somebody over in Ireland, and I'm all about growing the game of football. Much appreciate your willingness and your persistence in trying to find more Bills fans, not only in the states but across the world. And thanks for having me on. I'm excited about it.
You're very welcome along. You had a brilliant 8 year career with the Buffalo Bills. In that career, what games stood out for you? And with all your brilliant memories that you've created, tell us a few that really stand out.
Well, I'd say probably the game that stood out the most to me was the first game I ever played in. Unlike some guys, it took me a little bit to get going in the NFL. I was drafted by the Chiefs. Went to Atlanta after I was released from Kansas City. The next year, Atlanta released me, and then I eventually ended up in Buffalo. And Buffalo actually released me once before they signed me back onto the practice squad. And then I was brought up on the active roster with 4 games left in the season. And that first week I was brought back up was against the Miami Dolphins on ESPN, Sunday Night Football. And, I just figured I was going to go down there and hang out and wear a nice baseball cap on the sideline and cheer on my teammates. And halfway through the second quarter, I got put in the game. And next thing you know, I played 100 and some games in a row. So that's probably my most memorable. I mean, there's been some great games we played. The rollout touchdown against Jacksonville, Doug Flutie, the wild card game at home against the Miami Dolphins when we ran wild. Thurman had a huge game. My on the road roommate Tim Tyndale, mostly a special teamer but a backup running back, had a touchdown run against Miami. It was a big win. Obviously, going to the Super Bowl and being in Atlanta for the last Super Bowl of 4, that's a tremendous experience. And then we've also, there was games where you had tremendous heartbreak as well. The home run throwback game in Tennessee where we lost the game down there on the last play of the game, a trick play on the kickoff return, and kind of propelled the Bills into a 17-year drought in the playoffs. So, there's a lot of memories, a lot of good friends, a lot of good people in the city of Buffalo and surrounding areas, and always grateful for my time up there.
Oh, yeah. And what does Buffalo mean to you? And what does the Bills Mafia mean to you?
You have to understand how I was brought up. I was brought up by blue collar parents, and I lived outside of Philadelphia about 35 minutes. My parents were born in Bridgeport. I was born in Norristown. From a hardworking blue collar family, and that's kind of what I related to. And you go to Buffalo, and that's what Buffalo is. I mean, Buffalo is the city of good neighbors, right? It's a wonderful town. It's a wonderful city. Great people. The Bills Mafia are unbelievable. Arms are always, stretched wide and ready to take you in, and everyone up there is just so good to you. And it was just a natural fit. That's just kind of how I always was. I was always kind of an underdog player. Came from like I said, a family of hardworking people. That's what we knew. You relied when things got tough, you just worked harder. I mean, that's what you relied on. That's how Buffalo is. And I felt very comfortable there and still have a great number of friends up there, still get to go back. And over the last so many years, been going up once a year to see a home game with my sons and have them experience not only the game, but also the Mafia and the tailgating and the camaraderie. And just was a natural fit from day one. Just love the city of Buffalo. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma now, but if I had the opportunity to move back, I would take it. I love living up there. I love being up there. And I know we get a bad rap about the winters in Buffalo, but quite frankly, they're not. To me, it's somewhat enjoyable, and just really, really grateful for my time up there.
That's brilliant. You go back as often as you can up to the Buffalo to see the games. the stadium is in a second last year before the move to the new one. What kind of memories have you from the current stadium, and are you looking forward to the new stadium when it opens?
Well, I mean, obviously, your memories back then are always of the weather, right? I mean, it's always about playing outside in December, bringing a team in like Miami from South Florida, and you got to play in the elements. And it was always about not only just the weather itself against the other team, it was just seeing your fan base show up, not an empty seat in the house to watch a game in that type of weather. And it was awesome. I mean, it was something you can't understand it until you experience it. And the old stadium the stadium is loud. The fans get after it. The metal seats and all those things. The noise reverberates, and you definitely have a home field advantage. Playing up in Buffalo and amongst the Bills Mafia. But it's funny. Times change, and training changes, and equipment and evolution, and as far as the game. And you look at Buffalo now, and one of the games we went to was a couple years ago. We went to a home game against Miami in December. I think it was the second last game of the season. And snow started in the third quarter. There was probably a couple inches of snow on the field, and Miami still played well. And it's almost like the weather home field advantage has kind of gone away a little bit because everyone's gotten so used to playing in the elements, and the equipment nowadays allows you to play well in the elements, the gloves and the heaters and the uniforms and all those things. So, you talk about the new stadium. I think that it probably would have been a good call if they put a roof on it. I know there's some hardcore people out there that they want to play outside no matter what time of year it is. But you look at the economics of this thing and the ability to make money off of concerts and other events that aren't football games, right? And when you put a roof on something, you're able to use it year round. And the way Buffalo represents and the way the fans represent and the people come out, I think it would have been a really good opportunity for them to maybe get some mega concerts or see some things in Buffalo you normally wouldn't see because of, having that roof. But all being told, I mean, they're not having one on it, and that's fine too. I mean, it gives you the presence of the weather. You feel what's going on outside, and it is a different experience, and it's something until you're in the middle of it, you just can't understand it. So, it's sad to see a stadium like Highmark go away. I mean, when I played there, it was Ralph Wilson Stadium. At one point, it was Rich Stadium, amongst other names. But yeah, I mean, it's always sad to see something you really, really, truly know go away. But this new stadium is so well deserved, and it's going to be such uh, an added bonus to not only the fan experience but also just the franchise in general.
It sure will. Excellent. In your playing time in Buffalo, who were the players you most liked hanging out with, and why?
Well, it's funny you say that because what people don't understand is pro football is such a time consuming thing, and you're with these guys all the time because your days are filled up with football. You get in by 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you leave at 6 o'clock at night. And I mean, you're there 7 days a week for quite a while. Back then, it was not quite as long as it is now with 18 weeks, and them even talking about adding another game, which would be 19 weeks. But yeah, I mean, guys I hung out with, obviously the offensive linemen, guys like John Fina, who you had on the show, Glenn Parker. Um, guys like that, Corey Halsey, some guys, Billy Conity, and then also had guys like Alex Van Pelt, him and I had very similar hobbies. We both like to hunt and fish. We both like to hang out, and Alex and I did a whole lot of fishing together, a whole lot of hunting together. So, yeah, there was guys like that, but it's funny in the pro game. It's unlike college where you're living together and you're spending so much time together as far as off the field. When you start talking pro football, I mean, you got wives, you got kids, and maybe you don't quite spend as much time together off the field, but there are those few that you do spend a lot of time with and that you still talk to.
And just a question: when you were playing, that, like, I was on over in London there for the Bills game. It's my Super Bowl as of now. They played the Jaguars last October. Um, the atmosphere in Tottenham Stadium was brilliant, but one day I hope to witness the Highmark or the new
Right,
stadium, whichever it is,
right.
atmosphere. But when you were out there in the middle of the field, what, how does the atmosphere affect you as a player?
Well, what's funny is home and away are two separate things. When you're at home and you're on offense, you got to hear, so you're constantly trying to tell the crowd to quiet down. And the crowd's educated; they understand the game. They know that they shouldn't be making a lot of noise when the offense is on the field, but yet when the defense is on the field, they're loud and they're representing. On the road, it's opposite. The home field advantage. You're trying to get a snap count. The crowd's incredibly loud. You can't hear. You got silent counts and those types of things. So home and away, it's different. But it's funny when you play and after the initial shock of playing in front of that many people, and some guys from college play in front of bigger crowds. I mean, if you go to Ohio State or Penn State, you're talking, 105, 90 some thousand fans, right? A guy like me, I played at Tulsa. When our stadium was full, it was like 48,000 when I was there. So I didn't quite play in front of the crowds that some of these other guys did. So the initial shock of being in front of that many people, it does affect you. I mean, it's different, but after a while, you get used to it and you get in the flow of the game, and it's like the fans aren't even there. I mean, you're in a zone and you're in the moment. So it's a little bit different. But no, I mean, it's always good to play in front of Bills Mafia, man. I mean, uh, you're talking about the best fans in the league, and not only the best fans in the league, probably some of the most educated on the game of football fans in the league. So they understand what's up, and it's always good to play at home.
That's that's amazing. Um, you are part of the Overreaction Buffalo Network with yourself and Joe Miller and uh, Buffalo Bills legend like yourself, John Fina, who I am still so grateful and more than you to have on the show. Tell us about your shows and network and where can people find you?
Well, right now we're in the off-season mode, and it's funny how this whole thing fell into place. John, I knew John. Obviously I knew John forever from playing with John, and I was messing around one day on the computer, and I'm watching um, something on YouTube, and I see this show, this Off Tackle with John Fina, and I just am like, okay, so I watch it, and I after watching it, I texted John. John and I had each other's numbers. Like, hey man, that was really good. I really dug that show. I'm gonna start watching it. And at that point, he's like, "Well, hey, do you want to come on?" And this is over COVID. This was over COVID when everybody was, had to stay at home and everything was locked up and those kind of things. And you're looking for stuff to do, and that's kind of how I stumbled upon it. Was just looking for content to watch, and so I texted John, and John's like, "Oh, hey, let me talk to Joe. You can come on the show." So I got to meet Joe that way, and in a short amount of time, I understood and I should, I knew because John was associated with Joe, and I knew that if John was associated with Joe, he was a good guy. And I got to meet Joe, and we hit it off instantly. I mean, we've got a lot of the same things we enjoy, a lot of the same beliefs, a lot of the same things, hobbies, and stuff like that. Joe and I hit it off, and then they got me into what was then Buffalo Rumblings, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I have done sports radio for years in the city of Tulsa. I had a couple of stints, 5 years here, 5 years there. So I knew sports media. I knew how to bring a show in, take a show out, and all those things. And now I had the opportunity to do it once again in a little bit more of a laxed format. Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed my time with Sarah. Her and I had our first show together on Rumblings. But John and myself and Joe had always talked a little bit behind the scenes. One day maybe, because Joe had this thing that was sitting there and not doing anything with it, which was Overreaction Buffalo, Overreaction Sports. And I said, well, hey, maybe one day we'll kind of join forces and do this. Well, it just so happened that Vox Media made the decision for us, and they eliminated the Buffalo Rumblings. They eliminated nationwide podcasting for all sports. And we said, hey, now's the time to do this if we want to do it. And we just kind of fell into it, and it's been something that's not only been fun, but it's been cool because we get to really stay in touch with Bill's Mafia, and they've been so good to us, and watching the show and liking and subscribing on YouTube, because as the more subscriptions we get on YouTube, the more we can do as a network, because it opens up some avenues financially. So we just hit one milestone, which is 1,000 subscribers, which is going to allow us to do some things online, um, as a network. So we're excited about that. But yeah, so you can find us on YouTube. Right now, we're doing shows on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time in the States, which is tonight. We'll do a show with Zig Fragasi, who actually grew up in Niagara Falls, did some stuff with the Empire Sports Network, and now he's on the NFL channel on Sirius XM. We'll have him on to talk about that. Thursday night, we do a show which will eventually be my show. Still kind of kicking around name ideas and stuff, but it'll be heavy as far as a breakdown of this coming week's opponent when the season starts. And then we have a show on Sunday night right now, which will eventually become, which was originally the Overreaction post-game show. We'll keep that name, but it'll become myself, John, and Joe instead of just Joe. So we'll have the post-game show. We'll have my show on Thursdays. We'll have the On the Beat show on Tuesdays, and then of course the show that started it all, Off Tackle with John and Joe. And it might be some resemblance of myself popping in and having a three-person panel or some things like that. That'll be on Monday nights as well. So we're still kicking around the Wednesday show that would be something that is different than what we're doing right now, but still we'll have it on the network. Not sure 100% yet if that's going to happen, but I think it will. So we'll be pretty busy for the week. I mean, we won't have any off days other than Saturday. So we're looking forward to it. I love doing it. Again, it's always great to connect with the Mafia and be able to talk about the greatest team in the NFL, which is the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I know from listening to your shows, I do get them the following day on the podcast, and I love listening to them. The stuff you come up with, how
Well,
you look at things and how you see things is
right,
brilliant.
Trev, it's one of those things where John and I, Joe's a consummate professional. Joe understands the game. He handles the behind the scenes stuff for John and I, because let's face it, we're ex NFL players. We don't really care to do all that stuff. We just want to go play, right? Yeah, although we've had to do some things that maybe we haven't done in the past, but you got Joe who understands the game, consummate professional, and then also brings a fan view of being a Bills fan. And then you got John and I who, between the two of us played, 20 years, right? So it's a different perspective that maybe you can get elsewhere.
It is, and the way you talk about it, you can. I, as a person from the west of Ireland, can relate and understand. It's not complicated. It's well explained and it's very enjoyable. And the guests you do have on are fascinating too, to hear their stories
Well, thank
and
you.
your thoughts on things.
Well, thanks. It does us no good if we come in and John and I can go Mach 5 and make it as complex as we want to. But one of the things, and it's funny because John coaches younger kids, I coach younger kids. And one of the things you learn is communication styles and what these kids can comprehend and what they can't, and what they're able to do and what they're not able to do. And so the comment I'm going to make is not a shot at all at anyone's, football IQ or, acronym or whatever you want to talk about. It's the fact that it does us no good if we talk about, things a certain way and nobody's getting it, right? So, one of the things about being an offensive lineman is, you're in a very technical position, but you got to be able to put it out there in a way that the kids and the players can understand. And that's something we kind of, we do by nature just because of our training as offensive linemen and things like that. So we enjoy it. And we are going to try to do some different things as the season goes on. We might add some, different things, some equipment, like maybe a telestrator or stuff like that, where we can get a little bit more in depth in what's going on. But no, it's one of the things we like to do. It's one of the things we pride ourselves in, is being able to bring that message to everyone without being too ridiculous, because football can get ridiculous. Some people and the way they talk about it, the way they describe football's still a game about blocking, tackling, and ball handling. That is what football is. You can talk about to the nth degree and give it slang terms and all these different things. It's still about those three things. If you can't do those three things, you're not going to win a lot of games. So, we try to take the game and put it out there in a way that everybody can understand.
Well, for anyone watching this that hasn't seen it, please tune into the Overreaction Buffalo network, because it's you guys are awesome,
Thank you.
and I very much appreciate the stuff I'm learning from you. Thank you.
The same way that I would expect you to describe soccer to me. or
Yeah.
or rugby or Celtic football, or what's the game they play with the ball and the sticks? What's that called?
That's hurling.
Okay,
Hurling.
Okay. Same thing, right? I could not. It took me. I recently got into rugby. I had a knee replacement on my right knee. I was sitting there in the house. You're laid up for a while. I was trying to find something to watch, and I stumbled upon the Six Nations documentary on Netflix. And I watched it. I'm like, this is awesome. And so I got into watching Six Nations matches. And by the way, Ireland is my favorite team in the Six Nations. And, it got to the point now where I like rugby so much. We have high school rugby in the state of Oklahoma. They had a state championship game recently. And one of the coaches on the team that won it all is a friend of mine. He actually asked me to do the coin flip before the rugby match. So
cool.
I got to do the honorary coin flip before the state championship rugby match. So, yeah. So I'm still learning things too, believe me.
Oh yeah, it is all about learning. That's life. And when you can learn and you can understand what people are talking about,
right?
Like it's half the battle, and you guys do an amazing job at that.
Thank you.
With the new season getting into swing, what are you most excited about for the new look Buffalo Bills?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about is the fact that there seems to be a youth movement across the team, not just in players, but also in coaches. Joe Brady takes over as the instead of the interim, he is now the full-time offense coordinator. Bobby Babich Jr., who was coaching the secondary, he's also coached linebackers. He now takes over as a defense coordinator, a kid that I kind of have some connections to through Tulsa. His father, Bob Babich Sr., who coached for the Bills, actually played at Tulsa and coached at Tulsa. And Bobby Babich Jr.'s mom is from Tulsa, so there's a connection there. So I'm cheering for him. I'm rooting for him hard. And then, of course, you got Keon Coleman, and you got this youth movement amongst the team. When they made some cuts, obviously, the Bills released quite a bit of veteran leadership. The one that maybe troubles me the most is Mitch Morse. He still has some good football left in him. But the salary cap's salary cap, and you can't get away from it. And so they had to get money instantly. So they moved on from Mitch. Obviously, Jordan Poyer, a huge part of this football team for a long, long time. You hate to see him go, but these are moves. Trey White, for instance, and we'll actually get to realize his $10 million June 1st of cap relief when that veteran release goes through June 1st. So, you hate to see guys like that go, centerpieces, of the franchise, but it was time. I mean, franchises get in trouble when they hold on to their own too long. And I think Brandon Beane's done a really good job of identifying that and allowing, them to move guys on and let the young guys come up through. The guys you draft and put the time and effort in to develop, you got to give them a chance to play at some point. So I think my biggest thing is just the mood overall. Just seems to be there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of young guys. Young guys bring energy. And I think it's just a different atmosphere as far as that goes.
It seems that way, and we keep the fingers crossed that it'll continue. The next question I have to ask you is, in your opinion, was it the right time for Stephon Diggs to move on? And I have another part to it. Do you think a strong alpha male personality missing out of the locker room will make the place a calmer place and more relaxed, or is it something that's needed there?
Well, as far as the alpha dog goes, I think that it's quite obvious that the alpha dog wears 17 on his chest, right? That's Josh Allen. It's been Josh Allen's football team. It will continue to be Josh Allen's football team till the day that he goes somewhere else. When I look at the Diggs situation, a person told me a long time ago a saying, and the saying goes as such: your on the field talent better be much higher than your off the field issues. And what I mean by that is a lot of times teams will maybe turn the other cheek or maybe won't, you know, they'll address things. But if a guy is like putting up huge numbers, you can live with some things. You can live with some annoyances. And when I say that, I don't mean, just horrible things done. I'm talking, annoyances, which the whole dig situation became for the franchise, an annoyance. I think it was the right time because, we talked a little bit off air. When you look at his production and the way things were going, his production was declining at a pretty rapid rate. And in the game of football, there's that magic number, which is 30, right? When you get to 30 or you're close to 30 or over 30, all of a sudden you become expendable. And do I think Diggs is still a terrific wide receiver? I do. Do I think Diggs will possibly have another good season in Houston? I do. But as far as constantly challenging, and that's maybe what the issue was. You talk about the alpha dog. Like I said, the alpha dog in most NFL teams, because of the fact that this guy's making 25% of the cap money himself, you can't challenge that guy. And Diggs challenged that guy on a regular basis. And I think it started to hamper maybe Josh Allen's place in that locker room or Josh Allen's ability to be that lead guy. And so when you start looking at numbers that are declining, instances of annoyances going up, yeah, I mean, it was the time. And they got great compensation for him. And what's crazy is the Houston gives us a second for him, and Houston turns around and cuts him loose of his contract and says, "You got 1 year, you're playing for an extension, so he may not even be there next year." So that should tell you a little bit of something as well. So, I think it is important with a young team that you have some strong veteran leadership. Like I said, I think Josh Allen's a tremendous leader. You got guys on that defense that are tremendous leaders. You forget a guy like Ed Oliver now has played 5-6 years. Ed's a positive role model in that locker room. You got guys like Terrell Bernard. Well, maybe he doesn't have the 5 years yet or whatever, but he's getting close to it. He is a presence. So there are some guys there that are strong leaders in that room. We just don't quite know who they are yet. And I think that's the biggest fear of Bills fans. If they knew who they were and they knew, in the back of their minds that part was covered, maybe there wouldn't be such an issue. But they're there. And McDermott and the rest of the coaching staff is developing the young guys and kind of, pointing out or making reference to who those leaders will be or who they want them to be. And they're helping them along too with leadership type, activities and trying to help those guys develop their leadership skills. So, I mean, you hate to lose guys like we did in the offseason, but, those guys are there. They're ready to step up and take those roles.
Yeah, like from watching it from here, the most nervous thing for me in the draft was, were they going to pick a wide receiver first? And when everything went out of the first round, you started wondering. And then they picked Keon Coleman. And what, like, I had to check up who Keon Coleman was and look at things about him and stuff. But his first interview, Jerry, for me, said a few things. He said he's natural, he wants to play, and there's a leader there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only from his first. I hope, because I want it for him, because that's what I think of the guy, that he will be that, and it will turn out for him on the field, because he looks to be so genuine, and that's what I like to see in my team, the likes of him and Josh Allen and that connection.
And I think you have to look at how that fits in with the city of Buffalo and the fan base as well. I mean, that's kind of how Buffalo is too. They're very cut and dry, very upfront. And Keon coming in and displaying those traits right off the bat was a big deal to the fan base and eased everybody, settled everybody down a little bit after who's this guy? We didn't pick one in the first to, hey, this guy's going to be okay. The thing you worry about with rookies like that, and Keon is a very confident individual. The thing I love about him the most, other than his, his easiness and his personality, the thing I like about him the most is he works. I mean, he works hard. You can tell he's trying to be the best receiver that he can be for this franchise, and I'm excited about that. He worked this over Memorial Day weekend with his cousin, who is CeeDee Lamb, and there were some pictures out there, some video out there of those two guys working, excuse me, and trying to get better. But the thing I worry about with a guy like that, and with all rookies, is there is going to come a learning curve stretch, okay? Whether it's game one to the middle of the season, a few games here and there. I mean, there's a lot of really good football players in this NFL, in the league, and a lot of them play cornerback. And, there's some of them right in our own division, like Sauce Gardner. And so if he has a rough game, if he's got a tough game with getting off a man-to-man and separation and press coverage and those types of things, is he going to be able to, weather that storm and just continue to develop to where he comes out of it on the other side, golden? Because he is going to be scrutinized quite a bit by this fan base. They've made the trades, they bumped down into 2, they picked him with the top pick of the second round, which I think was actually the appropriate thing for Bean to do, get more picks and get the guy that you want all along. But he's also going to be compared to the gentleman that the Chiefs took, because we passed on him. Two
Yes.
totally separate body types, styles, everything. I mean, just 2 different wide receivers. So it's, there's going to come a little rough patch. Are you mature enough to handle getting through that, continuing to stay true to who you are, develop, and then reap the benefits later?
Yeah, and as fans, we have to accept that. Like
Right.
that, there will be, he has to mature. He has to learn the game, and it's going to be different to college. And as fans, when these things happen, you just have to support the lad and get him,
Right.
be
We
there.
talk, yeah, right, right. We talk about a youth movement, right? When you have a youth movement, you're going to have some youth growing pains, right? That's just part of it. So there will be some times where there's going to be some growing pains. I mean, we're going to probably rely on Cole Bishop to start at safety. Um, yes, I know he played well at Utah. He's a tremendous player, but there's going to be some growing pains. That happens with any young player. So it'll take a little bit of time, but I think they'll do just fine.
Yeah. The schedule is out. The draft is done. Right now, where we are, what are your hopes and expectations for the Bills for the 2024 season?
Well, I think my expectation is, as long as 17 is healthy and taking snaps, we should be the favorites to win the AFC East. I still think the Bills are the kings of the East. I still think until somebody beats them and knocks them off, um, I think they're the favorite to win the division. I think Miami has a lot of holes in their roster. I know they picked up quite a few players. They especially got Odell Beckham Jr. They picked up some speed at receiver, or some more different guys, which is what they've had. But I just think they've got some holes in their roster, especially on the defensive end front and a little bit up front on offensive line. The Jets to me, the Jets are the team that the Bills are going to really have to fight it out with to win the AFC East. Like I said, the Dolphins will play good football, but I think the way the Bills play, and if they continue to do what they're doing, they'll take care of the Dolphins. And I like the fact that they get the Dolphins out of the way by the end of, I think, week 10. They're already done with the Dolphins and don't have to worry about them anymore. But the Jets are a team that, as long, I feel very strongly about quarterbacks in this league. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Aaron Rodgers' playing ability, even at the age he is. I still think he's a tremendous player. I think he's tremendous as far as getting his guys to play the way he wants them to play. The Jets did a wonderful job this offseason. Their draft and their offseason was really, really good. Was as good as anybody's in the league. They went out and picked up Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. They got the first round pick out of Penn State at tackle, and then they got, I believe it's Joe Simpson, if my memory serves me right, who was a guard from the Ravens. So they picked up 3 starters on that offensive line, 2 tackles and a guard. So they did get better up front, which was the big thing with Rodgers. Can they protect him? Well, they're definitely trying to protect him, and I think they've done a good job of doing that. They picked up a few other role players and some pieces. So to me, especially with the Patriots and a huge rebuild, I just really think right now it's the division for the Bills to lose, and I think their strongest competition will be coming from New York and the Jets.
And just a kind of a curveball question. So Kirk Cousins went to Atlanta and had, I think it was an Achilles injury he had as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they went out and got Michael Penix Jr. In the draft. Do you think that the Jets missed something by not getting some kind of a quarterback for them in case something happens to Aaron Rodgers? Because if he goes down, like New York Jets will be a totally different team that will
Right.
challenge us with Aaron Rodgers to without Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly, because you remember they beat us without Aaron Rodgers first game of the season in MetLife. When you look at the Jets team, they did go out and get a quarterback. They got 2 quarterbacks. The one they got is one that the Bills fans are very familiar with. They got Tyrod Taylor. So I know what you're saying. Did they go out and get a marquee guy? Tyrod's an insurance policy, better than what they had. They feel with the defense they have, with a veteran like Tyrod, they can win more games than they would lose if they had to go to him. And it's a cheap option for him, a cheaper option. And then later in the draft, I think it was 6th round, maybe 7th round, they picked the quarterback from Florida State, the kid who broke his leg before the whole national championship selection thing here and that whole fiasco. So they did add a couple quarterbacks, but still, if you look at the players that were brought in, the players that are already here, these are Aaron Rodgers guys. There's stamp of approval from Aaron Rodgers. This team is built around Aaron Rodgers, and for them to be successful and be what they want to be, he has to be healthy.
Yeah. Right now, if you were to pick one team from the AFC and one team from the NFC to watch out for in 2024 to say challenge the Bills or go for the Super Bowl, as of now, who would the 2 teams be?
Well, in the AFC, I'm still going to ride with the San Francisco 49ers, a team that we get to play against at home. I believe it's right before the bye week. So it's the Niners, the bye week, which is over Thanksgiving. And then it's Chiefs, bye week, Niners is how it goes. I still really like the San Francisco 49ers. I love Kyle Shanahan and how he puts offenses in. I like what they do. They've got a ton of weapons on offense. They play nasty on defense. So I'd have to say the NFC would be the Niners. If there's some other teams, and we play some of them, some sleeper teams, I wouldn't even say sleeper because they were in the playoffs last year. You got Detroit, who we're going to have to play again, who are playing this season. The Rams, who are playing this season. So can the Philadelphia Eagles turn it around after a tremendous draft and a tremendous offseason? Is Jalen Hurts healthy? If he is, I think the Eagles have a say. But still, I think the cream of the crop in the NFC is the San Francisco 49ers. When you look at the AFC, besides ourselves, everybody's going to talk about Kansas City because they do got the best quarterback in the league. Mahomes is amazing. Andy Reid is a hell of a football coach. They will always be a problem, especially in the postseason. The Ravens, they've done some things. I still think they play football the right way. They're physical. They play tough defense. They run the football. Another team we will get to play early in the schedule is the Ravens. And then, but I think the team that's kind of quietly creeping along that maybe could possibly be that breakout team in the AFC is another team we play on our schedule, and that's the Houston Texans. I really like the Texans. I think C.J. Stroud had a tremendous rookie season, obviously, and if he can put another season like that back to back, or even get better with that receiving core, they're going to be a tough out. So those are some of the teams that I like in the NFL this season.
Yeah, it's hard to pick one. The NFC is probably easier to choose. Like you had the
Right.
49ers, and there will be the Cowboys will dream as per usual, and the Eagles might turn up, and the Rams and the Detroit Lions could be two teams to watch out for. But the AFC, there's a lot of teams there that um, like if Joe Burrow coming back from the Bengals.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm not so hung up on the Bengals this season. I think there's still some question marks there. Obviously, got some controversies in that wide receiver room with T Higgins and all that, but and then Burrow's got to come back from a wrist injury that some say will never be right. But they're obviously they're dangerous, but yeah, it's hard to pick just one for sure.
So that's it for tonight, Jerry. I want to thank you so very, very much for coming on. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. Um, you have walked the walk in the NFL and played for the best team in the NFL in the Bills Mafia. And I know I'm biased in saying it, but I don't mind because Bills Mafia are number one for me. And I'm so very, very thankful for you for coming on. And anyone that can watch the Overreaction Network, please do because it is worth a watch, a listen, and support any way you can.
I appreciate you as always, man. Thank you so much. If you ever need me on again, you know how to get a hold of me. Always fun to do this, and really, really special to know that this is being broadcast across the pond and all over the world. So really, really cool, and it's awesome to have people that are really, really digging American football in a place that claims football or football or however you want to say it. That's cultural stuff for Fina. I'm not into all that stuff. But
Yeah,
no, I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much, Trevor. Thanks for having me on, and we'll do it again.
fair play to you, and thank you very much. I look forward to it.
All
So
right.
that's it for tonight from the Shed and hashtag Irish Blues Mafia. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much, Jerry, for coming on. And hopefully, I'll do a video again on Thursday night. Until Thursday night, stay safe, stay happy, and always go Bills.
Go Bills.